Happy New Year, everyone. Hope you have a fantastic year. Welcome back to the channel where we help you master Revit, BIM, and take your architecture skills to the next level. Today we have Big, B-I-G, Architects, really awesome building, Via 57 West, one of my favorite projects to be honest. It's in New York City overlooking the Hudson River, combination of a skyscraper and a courtyard typology. And I think Big has done an awesome job to create a really elegant piece of architecture that really suits the context and is really interesting and works. So before we get started, if you do want to like, comment, subscribe, sure, go for it. Otherwise, just kick back and enjoy the video. I hope you learned something and find it useful or a little bit exciting at least, and learn. There's a lot of tips kind of scattered throughout it that I think will help a lot of people, and I hope will help a lot of people with projects, whether it's this project or projects going forward. So any comments, of course, leave them below as always, but let's get straight into it. Let's get started. Okay, so kicking off, we're in the site plan, and the first thing we want to do is bring in an image so that we can trace it and make our building at least reasonably accurate in its overall size. So insert tab, image, and insert this JPEG, open. And I can just drop it anywhere for now, and we just want to scale it up. I know that the overall length is about 150 meters, or we could also scale to this, but because we're working in meters and I know the overall length, we can just select the image, come up to the scale button, click that, make sure graphical is ticked on, and then come down here and just pick the first point or one end, come down to the other corner and click that. And now if you just zoom out and just type in 150 m for meters and hit enter and hit escape, and now zoom out. Now that overall building should be pretty much exactly 150 meters. We can check that by going annotate, detail line, and just drawing from here across. Actually, if I hit escape, if I draw it on top, it might be a little easier to see. Draw a line across here, you can see there it's pretty much 150 meters from end to end. And just to check, I know this dimension here should be about 60 meters. So if I go from here to there we go, it's almost spot on again, 60 meters. So hit escape there. Now that's there, we can actually just lock it. So if I click it and come up to the pin, we'll just pin that in case we move it. Alright, now it's time to start modeling. We go to the massing and site tab, and we're going to start by modeling firstly the solid, like the overall form, and then we're going to start cutting the voids out, and the voids being the courtyard and the terraces. So massing and site, in place mass, you can give it a name if you like, let's call it Via 57 West, okay, and come up to the rectangle, and it's okay, we're drawing at level 1, the lowest level, and we just want to come in here and pick from one corner like that there to the next up here, and I'll try and see those dimensions. I will make it 150 meters by 60 meters like that. Hit escape. You can see here that because this is level 4, it's kind of a little off, but based on the overall layout or outline, we can see that's pretty much spot on. So that there. Now if we select this, just have a look in 3D view what we've done so far. All we've got is that box, and we want to make it a 3D. So come up here and go create form and click solid form to make that a solid, and we want to change this height, so select that and let's make it about 10 meters just for that initial base. I know it's a couple levels. Now with that done, we can go back to our site plan, and we want to change this here to wireframe for a second. Just have a quick look back here. Okay. So in our site plan, make sure that it's set to wireframe, and then we want to lift up this edge here. So if I select this point here, then go back to our 3D view, that point's still selected. So this is the point that we want to lift up to the building's overall height, which is 142 meters in total. So if we pick this here and go 142 meters, it'll just really simply move that there and give us that nice kind of almost parabolic shape there. One thing I'm going to change here, because you can already start to see it's a little difficult to see when we're because of this massing material. So we want to change the massing material, and this is something really handy. So I'm going to show you exactly how to do that in this tutorial. You're going to need it, I'm sure, in future work. So you want to firstly, let's see what material is applied to the mass. So to do that, we go to Manage, we go to Object Styles, and we find Mass in here, and you can see their default form. Alright, so we can actually just pick this 3 dots here, and this default form, we can see the transparency is set to 50. So we just want to drag this all the way down so there's no transparency, so it's basically opaque. And then we can also just change the color to make it a little easier to see. I'm just going to pick yellow for now. You can choose whatever color you like, whatever color is comfortable, but I'm going to choose yellow and go OK and OK. And now it's a bit easier, or a lot easier, to see that form, what it looks like, and it's going to be even easier to see those voids once we start cutting them out, which is the next step. So to cut out the voids, firstly let's do the courtyard. So Site, and because we're in wireframe, we can still see through. If I was to change this to hidden line or to shaded, it's now, you know, opaque, so we can't see below. So we keep this in wireframe, and we're still in the massing mode, so we can go to create rectangle, and again we're just going to trace from, let's say, this corner here, and then come all the way up to this corner here, like that. And let's go back to 3D and hit escape. I might actually switch this back to wireframe just for one moment, and we want to select this here, this new rectangle, come up to create form and hit void form, like that, and then just drag this. You can see also as you drag that face up that it's cutting more and more, so you only really need to come to here, but if you go any further it's not going to make any difference in this case. And to actually apply that effect, you just need to click outside or hit escape, and you can see that. So now if we go back to hidden line or to shaded, we can see that a lot nicer. So we've got the basic overall form. The last step is to create the terraces. There's a few different ways to do this, and this building is super complex, so to do it accurately would obviously take a lot longer than this tutorial and the scope of this tutorial. But to do it, I'm gonna show you a really easy way to kind of get that overall design of those terraces cut out of that form. So if we go to the site plan, the angle that we're going to choose to draw those terraces is the angle of this room here, and that's about spot on from what I can see from the drawings online. So we go to the modify tab, and you've got plane here. So if we go plane, and then actually just a second, let's just finish the mass for a moment. We're going to draw this reference plane outside the mass. So we'll go to architecture tab, reference plane, and you can just draw a little reference plane like that. It doesn't matter how long it is, the important thing right now is that it's on the same angle as that line, right? So it's like that. Click to give it a name, let's say reference plane to draw terraces, because that's exactly what we're going to use it for. Hit escape, and then select this reference plane. We just want to make it a bit easier to see exactly what it is, just drag it out like that. You don't have to worry about the angle right now, because once you've drawn a reference plane, it basically sticks to the angle that it was drawn on, so you can only just extend the ends visually along that plane or along that line. So let's do that again, drag that like that. So now we've got our reference plane, and we just want to grab it also and just drag it anywhere just outside of the building, and you'll see why in a second. Cool, so we've got that. Next thing, we want to draw a section on that reference plane facing the building. So to do that, we can go view, section, and then you can just pick the reference plane there, and it's drawn that hit escape. Maybe just to make this a little bigger, I'm just going to change the scale. Let's say 1 to 500. Oh, it's disappeared, so let's try 1 to 200. No good. We'd have to change the, actually I'll do it now. So if you ever get that where the section is disappearing when you change the scale, it's because of this little option here. If I just expand this, you can see this here when you've got the section selected in the properties. You've got hide at scales coarser than 1 to 100. So that means that as soon as I bump the scale up to 1 to 200 or 1 to 500, for example, this section will disappear from this view. So what I want to do is change this, and I'm going to just make it, coarser than 1 to 5,000, like that. So it's basically going to show up on every view. And now if I change the scale of this to 1 to 500, our section doesn't disappear anymore. So I hope that helps and solves that problem in the future. I'm going to switch this around, so if we click these arrows, it'll flip that section this way, and then just grab these, a little tricky, but grab those, drag those out here, and just drag that there, so that the building is entirely within the frame of our section. Alright, now we can double click the section head to open that and start to draw our terraces. First, let's change this. In fact, I'm just going to say do not crop view. So if you pick this button down here, do not crop view, it won't crop it at all, and if you click this, it'll just hide that crop region or that frame. Alright, so here we are, we're at a section, we're facing that work plane, and we can now jump in and start drawing those terraces. So firstly, select the mass again, come up to edit in place to get back into the edit mode, pick the rectangle, and then here you want to specify the work plane, so go name, and pick this one here, so reference plane to draw terraces. That's super obvious, that's the one that we want. Okay, and you just need to make sure, this is something that I notice some people miss, and I often miss it myself, or forget to click it on, is this draw on work plane. So make sure you pick that, and now you can start to draw your first terrace. So I'm going to just do the first one up here. We're obviously not going to draw them all, there's probably over 100 in the project, but I'm going to do half a dozen or a dozen or so now, just so we get the idea. So about 8 meters by 3 meters seems about right. Okay, so we'll draw the first one. We only need to draw one at this point, and we'll go to our 3D view, and we can see it's floating out here because it's on the reference plane, and that's perfect, that's exactly what we want. We want to select it, create form, void form, and then drag this. Actually, I'm just going to hit Control Z. You don't actually need to drag it just yet, so let's just let it sit out there for a moment. But what we can do is go cut now and pick the solid and then pick the void. Even though it's not inside it yet, it is still, Revit knows that when they do intersect, that this void needs to cut this solid. Alright, so if I hit escape now, I'll just show you what I mean. So if we hit tab, you want to come in here and pick this face closest to the building and then select it. And now with these arrows, if we drag this through, you can see there, if I drag it all the way through as an example, and then hit escape, you can see there that it's basically cut a nice clean void through the building right there. Note that once it does cut, that the void kind of disappears and becomes a little difficult to select. So what you want to do is hit tab a few times around the void, select it, and then now you can come back here and hit tab to select that face and drag it back to roughly where you want it to be, like that. But I think the easiest way to get a lot of these done is, I'm just going to go Control Z, now that we've just demonstrated that, and to do a lot of these to avoid a lot of repetition, we're going to leave them at this size and we're going to adjust it in one go. So let's just go, oops, Control Z, okay. So we've still cut it, so it knows that it will cut whenever it goes through the building, the solid, the void will cut it. So we're going to just now copy all of these from the section. So if we go to the section and we select by hitting tab. Make sure you're selecting the void form element, and then come up to copy. Make sure you have multiple ticked on, and now you can do you can just basically click anywhere here and then paste a few of these around the place. So, and again, we're not going to do them all. I'm just going to do maybe just a couple in different parts of the building, just so that we're dealing with every condition. So even down here it's going to be a little different, but that seems about right. We've got about a dozen or so there, and if we go back to 3D view, the rest we should be able to do in the 3D view. So we've got all these voids floating out here. Might actually minimize and make this a bit smaller again. We don't need that. We can make the screen a bit bigger, and we can now extend all of these. So if I just zoom in and hit tab a few times to select that face closest to the building again, and now grab that arrow and just drag it out, and again you'll see as you start getting closer to the building like that there, it actually starts to cut it, and you can see that cut. So you can, depending on how deep you want these to be, we might just do something like that for this first one, and you can see it disappears. So you just need to now go through, basically extend those faces or the surfaces into the building so that it cuts them. Oh, in this case, okay, so it hasn't cut now. I must have gone back a few too many steps, but we can really easily make that cut now, and it's a lot easier doing it from here as well. So we can go modify cut. Make sure you have multiple cut on. Pick the solid, and then click, pick all of these. Okay, I think we've picked them all. Hit escape. Again, Revit now knows that when we extend that surface, tab a few times, select it, and now drag in. You can see, there we go, it's now cutting the solid. Escape. We've got the second, tab a few times, select it, drag it until we see it. In fact, if you drag the whole way through, you can easily see where it will cut, and then you can just bring it back. That's probably an easier way, so you can makes it just a lot easier to find that space that you're actually looking for in 3D. Escape, tab a few times again, select, drag it the whole way through so we can see, and then we can now drag it back to about there. Tab, select. In fact, so I just hit escape after each one just so you can see it. It might be a bit easier. Tab, select, drag it the whole way through, and then drag it back to about there. Escape, tab again a few times, drag it the whole way through, and you can see obviously as the building, as we get lower and lower in the building, that these cut on a slightly different angle. So tab again, drag this through. Okay, this one is here. Go. Escape, tab, select, drag it through. This is now around the front. Tab, select, and drag that through. This is up here. Tab a few times, select. Sometimes that you might need to tab, 3 or 4 times depending on what else is in that vicinity. You might be trying to pick the edge or a point or something like that. Escape, tab again a few times, select that surface closest to the building, drag it the whole way through, and then drag it back, and then let go. Escape, tab a few times. This one might be back up here, I think so. Drag it through, yep, there it is, and let that go there. Escape, and oh, we've got one more down here, so tab that and drag that through, and we might do that one, something like that. There we go. And I think that is pretty much it. We can now finish the mass, and that's pretty much done. And because this is a mass in the project, we can apply materials to this and floor. So won't go into that in this tutorial, but if you do want me to go in a bit more detail about how you would do that kind of thing, let me know. But in summary, to create floors, you would select this and go mass floors, and you can create all the floors in the building. And to apply walls, such as whether it's curtain walls or the solid, looks like a composite aluminium panel wall from the images, you would go to architecture, wall by face, and then you can select any of these wall types and start picking those faces in there. But I hope that helps. Please, if you've got any comments or questions, please leave them in the comments below. If you want to see more video tutorials like this, please let me know, and make sure you hit subscribe and the bell to get notified. I'm making videos a lot more often now, more tutorials, and really interested to hear your thoughts and ideas. What sort of things do you want to see? What's helpful? What's interesting? What do you want to learn about? But for me, this stuff's really fun. I really enjoy it. Modeling really cool buildings like this and trying to find, faster and really clever ways to model really complex buildings and forms in Revit, and especially using Revit in ways that it doesn't normally get used every day. So again, hope that helps. Please leave a like and a comment below, and any questions, and yeah, make sure to subscribe to see more videos, and I will see you in the next tutorial. Thanks.